to use this because the people on Skype, I think.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to stand so I can see that. Stood at the podium. Okay. And I'm kicking it off, aren't I?
Sorry?
I'm kicking it off.
Yeah.
Taking that as a good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and those on Zoom who have joined us. Very lovely to see you all. My name is Jo Collin, and I'm delighted to say I somehow got cajoled, persuaded over a cup of coffee, meeting Simon to become the chair of the trust, which I'm thrilled and delighted about. So it's wonderful to be able to stand here, but I have to say I feel a little bit of a fraud. I've been with the trust for only a few months, so standing here sharing about the last year when I had absolutely nothing to do with it, and it was all of you wonderful people, does seem a little bit harsh. But I'd just like to take the opportunity to share a couple of things of the last year, bearing in mind that I wasn't here, so I don't usually like to read notes, but I'm going to have to make sure that we get this right. So 2020 to 21 was incredibly challenging and impactful year for the Trust. On the 16th of March 2020, the Trust was closed its offices and set up the Torbay Community Helpline. As you can imagine, at that moment in time for everybody, not only was the Trust closed and setting up that helpline, but everybody's lives was dramatically impacted, and the dedication and the determination of the staff and the organisation to try and make a difference to everybody who was feeling extremely isolated and alone was really impressive. Staff were deployed to support this with agreement from our funders to aid people in need through the pandemic. Due to the success of a sophisticated partnership ecosystem which emerged to support Torbay residents led by CDT, the crisis responded focus has now shifted to an ongoing support system. This system is becoming the front door for adult social care, with interest from children's services and other statutory partners as a comprehensive early help intervention support system. This period saw the development of a range of networks enabled and supported by the Trust to ensure that ongoing partnership work vital to providing the needs identified through the helpline. These are the foundation of the Torbay Food Alliance, the creation of a Torbay VCSE advice partnership who provide a range of information and financial advice to people calling the helpline, creation of the Standing Tool Partnership to provide additional person-centered support to people affected by domestic abuse and sexual violence, the creation of a new overarching voluntary sector wellbeing network which guides the work of the helpline supported and funded by Torbay Council Adult Social Care. In its own, in a normal year, that list of things is pretty impressive, but let's bear in mind that's at the height of COVID, with everything being shut down, with people risking redundancy, with ill health, not being able to necessarily see loved ones in hospital, and the Trust and partners and funders have managed to produce all that. I think it's pretty incredible considering the backdrop. So I'd definitely like to take this opportunity in highlighting the amazing work of the team and staff and volunteers who went above and beyond to support people in need through the pandemic. We would not be in this strong position without their dedication, passion, ingenuity, resilience. And it wasn't in what the words I was given, but I met with the team for a day, and I have to say it would be also fun. The fun these guys want to have and come together to make the difference, and the laughing and the enthusiasm to be a team and make things as enjoyable as possible certainly came through. So huge thanks to all of them. It's a pleasure to be the chair of this great organisation, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jo, and thank you for saying yes. What Jo didn't say is that actually think in her own DNA are some of the values that we hold dear at Torbay Community Development Trust. So she's a very good fit. We did try and find, a couple of external speakers, but unfortunately, third choice was me. So I'm just going to do a little whistle-stop journey of TCDT. Oh, nice. Could I have the first slide, please? Oh, hold a minute. Slight technical issue. So the first thing I wanted to say, it's been over 9 years, the journey so far. And I never thought I would be able to stand here in front of all of you today and say what I'm going to say today. So the first thing I want to say is how proud I feel to have been a part of that journey with all of you in the room and all of you on the screen there, and all of those who aren't able to be either in the room or on the screen. So why are we here? We're here to enable Torbay to be a place where everyone gets to feel involved and thrives together. And how do we try and do that as an organisation? By encouraging people to do what they do best. So all the work we do with our team of community builders out in neighbourhoods, enabling people to do what they love with each other. We're also here to enable groups to thrive. And you've heard about some of the networks and the groups, but you'll hear more later. Probably most importantly for me, it's about making connections and stimulating cooperation, because together we are so much better than we are on our own. So our strapline is about bringing people together. And this little story for a few minutes now is just going to highlight a few of the milestones along the journey. Next slide, please. So you won't be able to see the detail of this slide. It actually comes from our first annual report. Sorry about the feedback. I don't know whether I can do anything about that. Okay, can you still hear me okay? Can the people on Zoom hear me, Matt? Hopefully. So over on the left-hand side there, back in 2012, there was a meeting of over 120 people from across the community and voluntary sector in Torbay. And what was born from that event was Torbay Community Development Trust. Its vision, its values, everything it stood for was created by the sector, for the sector. In 2013, we started to enact the trust, and the first contract, and thank you for Torbay Council for giving us pump priming funding to set up in May 2014. But shortly after that, Torbay was invited to bid for £6 million from the National Lottery Community Fund for the Ageing Well Torbay programme, is what emerged afterwards. And it wasn't our intent to lead it, but we ended up leading it. And here we are 7 years later, after 2 years of actually landing the money, we have developed a wide range of support systems that enabled us to respond in the way Joe talked about earlier in terms of the community helpline. But of course, our organisation couldn't do that on its own. It was with other people. So we've got June up the back there, June Pearce. Big shout out for June Pearce. I got told I'd be in serious trouble if I didn't mention Helen Harmon from Age UK. Helen Harmon and her fantastic team of wellbeing coordinators who were absolute stalwart part of the community helpline system. But there were lots and lots of other partners, and I could mention lots and take up the whole 20 minutes. Now, there were criticisms at the time that took us away from our core purpose, but actually, I beg to differ, because all the things we did with that program were part of what we believed in as an organization and a collective of people. We stimulated community action through the team of community builders. We enabled those who had maybe more complex issues to receive support through the team of wellbeing coordinators. And we knitted all that together into an ecosystem of support. And we layered on peer support and financial advice support. Interestingly, the financial advice support was delivered by older people for older people, with the support of a range of agencies led by CAB, with Age UK and others. And it's still there today. Sometime in that journey, I think, according to my note, I think sort of 2015, we were awarded beacon status for transformational change in the role of supporting community and voluntary activity. By 2016, we're well into delivery. Wellbeing coordinators are delivering, community builders have been on patch for over a year. And then we were approached by the Design Council. And a number of us got involved in working with the Design Council, Unlimited, who support social entrepreneurship, and others. And we went through a journey of discovering the art of co-designing new solutions with the people, often called co-production now. So that went on through 2017, through into 18 and 19, and we learned a lot, and we used some of that learning on our own Aging Well programme. But we're not just here to work with older people, although maybe arguably the richest part of our society, all that experience and life to bring, all those assets, all those strengths and knowledge to bring to the party. We were approached by a number of partners who work with children, young people and families. And so in about 2018-19, Imagine This was born. Imagine This, ... Torbay is a great place to grow up. A partnership that's more than doubled in size over the last 3 years and successfully delivered a range of collaborative projects with young people, children, their parents and carers. And we saw them step up in an amazing way in COVID, delivering activities and supporting young people through the emotional turmoil of the 3 lockdowns. And they've gone on to deliver more collaboration, the holiday activities programs funded through the council, and more. Next slide, please, Matt. So Joe has mentioned a range of networks in the sector. Now, we're not taking credit for having created all of these, but we've been involved in all of them. Some of them existed before. But when I think back to when we started this journey, the National Lottery said to Torbay, you are what we consider to be a cold spot. Now, what that means is we're not funding as much into Torbay as we'd like to, because the calibre of bids weren't good enough, and so on. Now we're actually a national leader. We have places around the country coming to Torbay to ask our advice about how to do the work we've been doing for the last 9 years. So I've mentioned Imagine This, originally a partnership of 23 who submitted a bid to the lottery, now over 50. The Health and Wellbeing Network, mentioned by Joe, with 250 members. The Torbay Advice and Information Partnership that formed in COVID, which built on the FAIR programme I talked about earlier. The Torbay Food Alliance. Sport Torbay. Local Spark Torbay, who we helped get going in the early days, now with a membership of 63. I think that's 3 times as many as when we first started to try and set up a social enterprise network. So congratulations to them. Probably the bit I'm most proud of, actually, personally, and I think the last figure I saw, it's now 350 citizen-led actions, stimulated but not led by community builders. And the reason I love this more than anything else is because it's the people doing what they care about with each other, not what we think they should do, but what they want to do. And what a wonderful way of creating a community where everyone gets to be involved and everyone gets to thrive. This is built on the work that we can't claim credit for, but have supported throughout our journey, the network of community partnerships. We also support the Green Space Forum and have supported the Standing Tall Partnership, as mentioned before. Next slide, please, Matt. You'll be pleased to know this is the final slide. And you won't be able to see all the detail, but Joe just talked to you about the community helpline. Initially a pandemic response, but what a wonderful feeling for me as I exit the trust at the end of this month to know what a legacy after 9 years of development. So these figures may be a little out of date now, but over 7,500 people helped over the last 2 and a bit years. Over 1,700 residents involved and still involved today. But look at all the range of voluntary sector support provided by those networks I mentioned before. So we now have an ecosystem of support. And at the front of that, one call, that's all. And the reason that's important is because actually a lot of people use the term signposting. Well, I can tell you from 7 years of Aging Well, signposting doesn't work because the people that need whatever it is you're signposting them to the most won't pick up a signpost. They don't have the confidence. So in our system, you talk to a friendly resident on the phone, they log down what you need, they always ask you what you'd like to contribute to, so you can be a valued contributor as well as someone who might need some help. And then we route that need to the best organisation or individual to help. So that's a fantastic lasting legacy. Now, I'm just going to ask Robin just to pop up here for 2 minutes. Robin's been here throughout the journey. He was here before the creation of Torbay Community Development Trust and has worked in the voluntary sector in Torbay for 32 years. So I thought it'd be interesting to get someone else's reflection, and then I'll just close.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Yes, a long time. Yes, as Simon said, I've been here throughout Simon's journey with CDT and before that indeed. So both with CVA, Torbay and Torbay Voluntary Services, where I was a trustee. And I think you were a trustee too, Kevin, weren't you? For those that don't know it, know that actually Torbay Voluntary Services is one of the oldest voluntary organisations in the country. I think it's 1890, something around that time. So it had a long history. But I think it's fair to say when I joined CVA, we'd lost the trust of the voluntary sector a bit, certainly the statutory sector. We had leadership issues. We were drifting somewhat, and we were starting to annoy the sector. We were standing on their toes a little bit, moving into service delivery, which wasn't appropriate for us, and really not representing the interests of the sector as we should have been. So Simon came into the situation, quite a toxic situation with some leadership problems. We'd upset the statutory sector. We were quite likely to be losing our core funding. But he came in reluctantly as a chairman, helped steer us through those troubled waters and to move forward. And we started to start to talk to key people. We started to develop a strategy and see what we do. And as we said, Simon mentioned about the Parkfield meeting, which wasn't easy for us in terms of some of the messages we were getting, but nonetheless, we did get a vote of confidence of a sort, because the voluntary sector were very clear. They wanted an infrastructure organisation, an organisation which we could deliver on volunteering, on funding, on working in the communities, and working in partnership, which was a key facet of where we wanted to be. So with that sort of endorsement from the sector, we started to put together a plan for the future. I think the aim at the time was to be a lean organisation, low cost but high impact. So here we are now, 55 staff and was it 2.2 million in accounts. So that didn't exactly work out, but nonetheless, we didn't move into service delivery per se. We were very keen to collaborate, work in partnership, move forward with our partners, and both voluntary and statutory sector partners, and listen to what they said and respond to that. Moving away from a traditional infrastructure organisation, it was important to retain some of those key things, particularly around volunteering, working in communities and community partnerships and funding. But equally, we wanted to change things. And Simon was very keen that we shouldn't be working to those old models and actually we should move forward in a different way. Both Simon and I and Tracy and Ursula, some of the early members of staff with the new organisation, all agreed that older people got a very rough deal in the Bay. they weren't a priority, despite the demography of Torbay, its very high population of older people. They just weren't a priority. And I remember sitting around the table representing older people's interests from my age concern days, and almost tokenistic, really, older people's issues weren't prioritized in any of the strategies. And I sat down one day and age-proofed some documents. I age-proofed some documents, and there was nothing there. There was very little there which made older people a priority. So when the opportunity for aging well came up, we were very keen to work with partners and to look at the opportunities that might afford us in the Bay. So that was a huge step forward, I think, for older people. We decided that we would take the lead on that, but the key to that was working with the organisations in the Bay. We're working with older people, and the rest, as I say, is history. I'm very pleased that we were able to do that, because older people really didn't get the services, the support, and the engagement they should have been. So that's a sort of bit of a background, just a brief resume. There really has been a great transformation. Simon's been at the head of that. He's brought a great team around them. It's been an absolute pleasure to work for the organisation and see it transform in the way that it has. And I'm proud to be part of that. And I'd like to thank Simon for his efforts as a leader, taking us through that transformation and to where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. I just wanted to say a huge thank you, and then we'll pass back to the chair. First of all, a thank you to our funders, the National Lottery Community Fund being the largest of those. My second thank you is to Torbay Council for recognising the value of the work we do and for providing continuation funding for some of the things that we're involved in. I'd like to thank all the staff that I've worked with. This is where I get a bit emotional. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour. I'd also like to thank the partners we've worked with. I've mentioned some of them today. But the people I want to thank the most are the people of Torbay. So what's our strapline? Back to first slide. Bringing people together. So maybe I'm starting a new one here. Bringing people together the Torbay way. Here's to all of you. Thank you. And I wish you every success as I step aside and hand over to my very capable colleague, Tracy Kabash, to take on the leadership of the Trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I know later on we'll have an opportunity to thank you for all your hard work, and I know you're stepping aside, but you're not going too far, because we've managed to secure some great work that you'll be doing and be able to connect with us. So we're looking forward to working with you in the future. I believe now, according to the agenda, we're moving on to opportunity to present some personal stories in relation to volunteering and neighbourliness in action. And for me, this is why I said yes to Simon, because it is about the people. I think the sort of being together and bringing together, and the Torbay way is what excited me most about being part of this. Through my day-to-day job, working for Sport England and Active Devon, I know that working with Torbay and the people of Torbay, how agile, how personable, and how determined you are to make things a better place for all in Torbay, and to have a little part of that and to help support in it is a real joy for me. So I'm going to hand over, I think, to David, and he's going to take us on a little journey of some stories.
Good evening. Goes off the Zoom. I'm here mainly because my job is comms. I was the idiot that in February 2020 wrote 750 words in the Herald Express about the fact that volunteering was dead. It was no more, and there was no future in it. 6 months later, I was able to eat all 750 words because of the effectiveness of the helpline. So I'm wearing this jacket, one, as a celebration, and two, because I don't get out much. But I'm going to take you through a few of the people that I've had the great joy and immense privilege of chatting to over the last few weeks. I could have picked from any one of the 1,700 volunteers that Simon drew attention to. This is where it all gets very confusing because we're actually covering the period April 2020 to March 2021. So I could reel off the figures for 2 years of the helpline, which was last week, 16th of March. No problem at all. So actually doing the research on 1 year of the helpline has proved a little bit more tricky. But it's got to start somewhere. And I think the best place to start with volunteering are the efforts of the incredible people that actually pick up the phone and talk to people who call 01803 446 022. That number is burned into the psyche. So I'd like to first of all introduce you to Francis Ward.
For 47 years I worked for the NHS, 38 years as a district nurse. So I never had time for volunteering before because I worked an 8 till 8 shift most weekdays, brought up 4 daughters. So I was busy with that, then the grandchildren, and then COVID hit. And so they needed scrubs making. So I got out my sewing machine and helped with the scrub army to make 3,500 scrubs for the workers of Torbay. When that came to an end, I was at a loose end, and my daughter suggested I phone the Torbay Development Helpline, and I did. And that started me on my volunteering, which I now really enjoy. Usually managed to do 3 shifts a week, all sat in my own home, using the computer and our WhatsApp, which I was introduced to. It's a very satisfying role. You know, you're helping people at the time when they're at the lowest, mostly. Many a time they get on the phone crying, but by the time we've got off, we've had a laugh, and they feel reassured that somebody is going to help them. The thing I like about it is people can ring and we're not going to say, oh really, you should have rung such a number, or you should ring this. We tell them we'll ring them back with the answer, and that really, I think, is the most satisfying thing. We help with we've got financial advisors, we have people to help with call handling, we have people who help with shopping, we have people who help with things needed in the home. Somebody rang the other week, her bell had broke and she couldn't hear when people came to deliver things, so we got somebody out for that. And one of the biggest things we deal with is getting people connected to the food bank. One lady rang in to ask was there any way she could get help with the cost of transporting a husband who had recently had a stroke. And she told me that it had cost, how much it had costed the day before to take him in taxis from one appointment to another appointment. So I was able to tell her about the help we could provide with that. But I also asked her, with knowing about help out there of being a district nurse, I asked her, did she have a blue badge for her car? Because she was saying she couldn't park near the hospital, whereas if she'd had a blue badge, she could. She didn't know about blue badges. Because I heard about that, I said, had she heard about the attendance allowance, because she was having to look after her husband? Nobody had informed her about that. So I was able to give her the advice about getting the attendance allowance form, getting a blue badge, And several days later, well, it wasn't days, it was a couple of weeks probably, she phoned again and asked could she speak to Francis, because we only give our first name. And she's thanked me for all the help and how it had absolutely changed things for them, because nobody had offered her that help, and she just had her husband sent home to her to look after her. I was a satisfied lady. I would definitely recommend it. It's not going out, you're doing it at home. You tell them when you're available and they give you the shifts that fit in with your life. And it's knowing that you are doing something, especially when you get to my age. I just don't want to just sit there watching television all day. And there's only so many times we can go out and meet with your friends. So it's really satisfying to just feel that you can help somebody.
It's all well and good taking the calls. And I'm not saying that's the easy bit, because it certainly wasn't, definitely not in the beginning. And again, back in the beginning, it was all about food and medicines. I have to believe 2 years ago that we were queuing around the block to buy toilet rolls, apparently. But we were also, much more importantly, queuing around the block for sometimes life-saving medicines. And our community builders took the brunt of that, and they were out there every day, rain or shine, joining those queues, putting themselves at risk until we could find volunteers to help them with that. So one of our early rapid responders was Carol King, and this is her journey in her words.
I started at the very beginning. The Torbay Helpline had asked the community for volunteers, and I joined up that day. Not that I can remember exactly, but I think my first job was to do 2 days a week delivering parcels to people who at that time predominantly had COVID and weren't able to get out and shop for themselves. Although that evolved, and I delivered things such as pet food or disposable nappies and incontinence pads, prescriptions, all sorts of things. Whatever was needed, I took. Yeah, very much so. I had one lady who wasn't able to walk. She wanted me to go and do her shopping list, which was very specific. She wanted things like gluten-free lemon cake and lots of things I had to spend a great deal of time looking around the supermarket for. And as somebody who hates supermarket shopping, I found that a bit of a challenge. But I had one gentleman who needed incontinence pads, and he found sometimes he would run out, even though he had a weekly delivery, at a time when the Torbay helpline was shut. So I gave him my number and I would deliver pads to him whenever he needed them. And so that became an ongoing relationship. Or I had another gentleman who he moved into a flat and he had absolutely nothing, which was, for me, we were able to take him food as given by the Torbay helpline, but also I happened to have in my garage a spare television and a microwave and spare bedding, all sorts of things which he was able to use. And we built up a good rapport, and over the following months we've been able to take him all sorts of things and respond to whatever requests he has had, including on Christmas Day we took him a Christmas dinner, for which he was really grateful. Yes, with mixed outcomes. I had one gentleman who at the beginning very much needed somebody to whom to talk, but I realised sort of 3 months in, when he was dismissing me from the phone call, either I'd become exceedingly boring, which isn't out of the possible equations, but he clearly now was able to manage without that support. I have a lady that I've been phoning for over a year, and she and I have developed a wonderful friendship, and that will continue into the foreseeable future. I did have a third individual who was a lady of particular need. She was autistic, and the fit there wasn't good, and uncomfortable though that was, it was nice to know that I was there at least to try to help. And I think some of my friends who volunteered have had the same experience where the fit hasn't been quite right. Each of us has been learning how to adapt and how to accept that we're not going to be right for everything. Yes, we were there right at the beginning. Snow, hail, wind, rain from day one. My husband and I did it, well, my husband's still doing it. I stopped about 3 months ago. From a selfish point of view, I have to say it makes me feel good. But what is so great for the community is it's bringing together those of us who feel we have the wherewithal to help those who need help. And what the Torbay Helpline has done has acted as a conduit to bring those two parts of society together. I just have to say, if I might, how wonderful it was to have the Facebook page where people were able to tell them, tell the community what they wanted, and we were able to respond individually. And for example, certainly in the first year when the demand was really high, we were able to take decorations to a nursing home and children's presents to a children's home, and we could listen to what the people needed and respond directly, tailor-made to folks' needs. I thought that was inspirational and certainly brought a lot of good feeling to a lot of people, both the givers and the receivers.
Carol, thank you very much indeed. We need more people like you, and we know we've got hundreds more like you, but if we can get that message out, your very affirmative message, then we're doing very well indeed. I know I don't need to ask this question, but you are going to continue volunteering, aren't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, Carol was a volunteer before all this, but as you can see, she's gone on a journey with us as well. In fact, she's touched on so many different areas of our volunteering sections. We've been very lucky in the last year or two in getting the message out, and there's always a queue of people who want to get on the telly, thank goodness, except for Helen, but she's about to see herself on screen. So if you all watch Helen while this one plays, no, it isn't. It's the next one, Helen. You've got time to leave. This one is a chap called David Evans. David Evans is an estate agent in Brixham, and he took a very simplistic approach to befriending, really, because he says, well, we've all got mobile phones, we've all got packages that give us free minutes, so why don't we use them? And why don't we use them for lonely people who just need to have someone to chat with? And again, as the crisis developed, we found that more and more people were calling the helpline just to talk to somebody, because they really had not spoken to anybody for sometimes days, if not weeks at a time. Their whole, albeit small, network had been closed down, and they were feeling very, very lonely. So we set up a befriending service, which is as simple as it sounds. And the great thing is, for a lot of the people who were doing the befriending, it was a two-way service. So they were lonely, and they were ringing somebody else who was lonely. They were having a great chat, and the number of friendships that continue to this day as a result of that. But this is David Evans' story, with a little bit in the middle from ITV.
Thanks. Hi, I'm David. I've been volunteering for 50 years this month, actually. March 1972, I did a sponsored walk at school and kind of never looked back, really. But I've done quite a wide variety of different things, and one of the biggest was working in a big hospital in London, and that's where I met my wife back in the day. So there's something you can get from volunteering straight away. It's, you know, the different people you meet, different experiences you have. And I went on to move down here. I lived here for 20 years, moved away, and then came back in 2018. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I saw the posters for the helpline. And I thought, yes, I could do that, fit it in around work. And I discovered that people do like someone to talk to.
Okay, in the next few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to two friends who've never actually met. First, here's David. His full-time work as an estate agent keeps him really busy. But despite that, a few times a week, he stops what he's doing and takes just a few minutes to call this man, Chris, who lives alone in Paignton.
Good afternoon, David. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. You not working today?
It was earlier this year David began volunteering with Torbay Community Helpline, regularly phoning for people who are lonely.
I'm very lucky. I've never felt lonely. I've never been lonely in my life. But loneliness is a terrible thing, and there's no logic, there's no reason for loneliness. And we've all got phone contracts now with unlimited minutes. Let's use those minutes.
And to hear about the difference those calls have made, I met with Chris.
With David, how awkward was it, or was it awkward, when you had that first chat on the phone?
Well, it was so easy. He's a proper gentleman, you know. I respect him immensely. You know, he's always there for me, always supporting me.
I really enjoyed talking to Chris, listening to his tales of when he saw one of the greatest rock bands of all times.
I was lucky enough in 1976 to see The Who at Charlton.
But despite having led a full life, over the years Chris's confidence waned and he became more isolated.
A lot of people watching this will recognise what you're saying about that loneliness.
Yeah.
Can you describe to me just how bad it felt at times?
If I'm honest, it got to the point where you don't want to live. Because, you know, what's the point?
But sitting before me today, thankfully, is a much happier man. And that, he says, is a lot to do with David's calls.
David and the likes have given me an incentive to want to live longer.
As a naval veteran, Chris has also been supported by the Royal British Legion. The Torbay Community Helpline is run by a number of community organisations in the area. So how can many of us watching this get involved?
There will be some people watching this and they'll go, good on you, David, what you're doing, but I just haven't got the time. What would you say to them?
I've worked out that it's no more than 10 minutes a week, and I haven't worked out how many minutes there are in a week, but 10 minutes in a week isn't long.
Chris and David say maybe one day they'll meet up, but for now, this friendship really is enough.
You've not met David face to face yet,
No.
but I expect he's going to watch this. I hope he's going to watch this. What would you say to him?
I'd just like to pass on my greatest regard to who I call a proper geezer.
So if you fancy yourself as a bit of a friendly geezer, David says give it a go, and just maybe you can change someone's life. Claire Manning, ITV News.
The telephone befriending is so simple. All it is having a talk with someone about once a week, and that's it. And I've helped somebody move on with their life in particular, helped them with the sort of battle to get more suitable accommodation, which was fantastic, incredibly rewarding. And, you know, I might never meet the four friends that I speak to on the phone, but when I say it's two-way traffic, and I know a lot of other volunteers say this, it really is, because I get a lot out of those calls myself. It's not just sort of being a friendly ear for someone. What more could you ask for? But, you know, it's just just listening more than anything else. And you know, my day job is talking basically. I spend most of my working week on the phone, but when I speak to my friends, I'm more listening than talking, and it's a fantastic contrast. And you know, these days everybody's got unlimited minutes on their phone contract. Probably don't use half of them because of WhatsApp and Insta and all that goes with it. So yes, if you've got a lot of spare minutes and even a spare 10 minutes, who knows what might happen if you give it a try. I mean, some of my conversations are 2 minutes and no more. Some are a bit longer, but you know, I can fit this in with working because there's always time to just give someone a ring and find out how they're doing. And you know, if they come up with a problem they've got that you can't handle, you'll know where to signpost them as well. So don't feel daunted by it. But you know, we've all got phones and we've all got a few minutes, so why not give it a try?
Again, as the crisis continued and we staggered from lockdown to restriction to lockdown to part lockdown or whatever the next announcement was, we were receiving an increasing number of calls from people whose, not surprisingly, mental health was suffering quite a lot as a result. We relied a lot on our colleagues at Age UK Torbay to provide a triage service for those people. And part of that triage service was specialist befrienders. Now that's sort of befriending with bells on, if you like, with a little bit of with counselling background so they can spot the signs, help people through a crisis. And this film, which you will see was made at the height of the crisis because it's pretty awful by BBC standards, but it's they did what they could with Zoom, etc. And this is Teresa Cartwright, who's a specialist befriender, and the fantastic and fabulous Helen Harmon. You'll spot her.
And Phone a Friend, the Torbay Community Service lighting up lives.
I never thought I'd need somebody to ring me and say, how are you coping? How are you? She makes all the difference because we just have a good laugh.
Now, in times of need, it usually helps to talk to somebody. I know I do, but recently that hasn't been so easy. Because of a rise in demand in people wanting help, advice and just someone to listen, a specialist service in Torbay is now appealing for people to help continue its work. Torbay Community Helpline was set up shortly before the first lockdown to help people seek practical help with errands. But over time, the service has evolved. Helen Harmon from Age UK Torbay helped set up the service. I asked her why she thought this local service was proving so popular.
I think it's mainly about that local aspect, that when you've got people who are wanting to, you know, needing a befriender, that think you've got things in common. So very much around, you know, the local area. You may have been to similar places. You might know what's going on in the local news, and you know, and find out a little bit about the outside local world. So I think that's an important bit to the befriending, is that you bring some of the outside world into people, particularly if they can't get out and about.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, to make that connection if you can talk about local things. And that certainly has worked in the case of Jackie Code from Paignton, who has been talking to her befriender, Tessa Cartwright. They've been chatting each week for 8 months, and this is what they think of the service.
You know, I never thought a few years ago that I'd need somebody to ring me and say, how are you coping? How are you? Because I've always got people around me, but it's just somebody to unload.
My motivation is, it's the one way I can give back to the community, but be safe.
I'm quite lost. We're lost. My husband's got dementia and he finds it really hard.
I think you have to be a good listener. It's not about you, it's about the other person.
It's hard. It's hard some days. Very, very hard. And she makes all the difference because we just have a good laugh and she's on my wavelength. So it's really good. Really good. I appreciate it.
To actually sit and listen to somebody and truly listen is a gift.
You know, the first couple of calls are a bit strange because you don't know the person, but now it's like she's my best friend. You know, it's really lovely. She's really changed things for me.
Helen, you were nodding away throughout the whole of that conversation. I mean, Jackie and Teresa just really connecting there and really just have a good laugh as well, something we all need at the moment.
Absolutely, and I think they hit the nail on the head when they say it makes a difference and that they're now best friends. So that's the whole point, is that if people are feeling lonely, anxious, you know, and you know, they might live with somebody else, but you know, for the most people, they're by themselves. So just to have that friendly conversation sort of once a week gives something people to look forward to.
You started off as an errand service helping local people, and it's really evolved and developed since then. What is it now that people need the most, do you think?
I mean, it's still a variety of different issues that people have and that they're coming forward with. But I suppose the biggest one is around people's mental well-being and their health. And, you know, people still need assistance with things like picking up prescriptions, shopping, emergency errands, but it's the helpline's moved on, and we've had over 600 people come through to us asking for some support with their well-being and with their mental health.
My goodness, you're so busy and you're getting busier, I understand. So you need more befrienders. If somebody's watching us this evening and thinks, well, I could maybe do that, what skills do you need and where can they come to help you?
So specifically, we're looking for befrienders that might be able to help with people who have more complex emotional well-being issues. So you need to be more than anything a great listener. You need to be empathetic. And also, you know, develop that relationship as we've seen with the befriender and the befriendee that you've had on this evening, around, you know, that relationship that builds up over a long time.
Well, there's nothing like a good chat, and people love to listen as well in these times. Helen Harman, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to introduce you to a real person now, the only one had the nerve to come here. Thank you, Hazel. Everybody else wanted to go on film, but Hazel wanted to come and meet you. Now, the new kids on the block are the Vaccination Volunteers, in actual fact, which again, seems like an awful long time ago when it all started.
It certainly does, yes. We started last January. So it's been 15 months now that we've had volunteers both in the vaccination centre, directing people through, checking them in, sanitising hands, that sort of thing. And we have volunteers outside directing cars in the car park, sorting out some disputes in the car park, which we've had occasionally, but not too often, I'm pleased to say. So yes, last January was when we really started at the vaccination centre.
I think Carol made reference to it earlier. Rain, shine, and a little bit of hail thrown in as well.
Absolutely, but I'm delighted to say I'm indoors, so that doesn't affect me, apart from putting an extra jumper on.
Now your husband Chris does it as well.
We both do it. Both signed up last January, and we started the same month, and we're still doing it. Sometimes one session a week, depending on how busy the centre is. But we've done up to 3 or possibly 4 sessions a week. That's half days, depending on the need.
Now, if I remember my stats correctly, and this is where we're jumping around year to year, but as of this week, it's 88% first dose, 86% second dose, and 66% booster jabs. But this week, we've started, I believe, on the extra booster.
It was announced last evening. And this morning, we were expecting to be really quiet, and we were quiet for about an hour and a half. Suddenly, all these people appeared, winding their way around the building, dozens and dozens of older people. Their doctors had suddenly realized that these over 75s could have the vaccine today, and they contacted their patients, and they were wonderful. Hundreds of them turned up today. We really could have done with a lot more staff, but it made the time pass quickly.
I think that was a hint.
So if you're eligible, do have your 4th vaccine.
Yeah. Or come down and help out. One of the two.
Yeah.
Have you got a background in volunteering then?
Yes, I started volunteering when I was about 15. Starting with, I was in guides and I loved it. I mean, I got fed up with it. I grew out of it. So I started volunteering with the brownies. Then I discovered the cubs had much more fun. They were rowdy, they were noisy, they shouted. It was great. So I moved over to cubs. And I did that sort of thing until I married when I was 20. And then I had a break when I had my children. But once the youngest one had gone to school, I started at CAB. I did that for a few years. I've done various things all my life. I've done CAB, I've done Rowcroft, National Trust, Torbay Hospital League of Friends, and probably 2 or 3 others.
So we just need to clone you, really.
Well, I didn't do them all at the same time.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay.
no.
What's the atmosphere like then at the Riviera Centre?
It's great. The like-minded volunteers, we all get on, some better than others, obviously, because we're a diverse group of people, but it's enthusiastic. People want to help. And almost all the people that come into us, all the people coming in for vaccine, about 99% of them are absolutely lovely. You get 1 or 2 who can be difficult, but that's often because they're very nervous and or they're not used to mixing with people. But most of them are absolutely fine.
So same question to you as to everybody else there. You
Yes.
recommend volunteering?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And it's part of my life that I wouldn't be without. And at the moment, volunteering at the vaccination centre is so different to the other volunteering things I've done that it was a challenge to start with. And at days, it's still a challenge, but it's great fun. It's great fun.
Hazel, thank you very much indeed.
All right.
If the rest of you like to form an orderly queue,
Yeah,
to buy
I'll
Hazel
sign
a
you
drink,
up.
and then she'll sign you up. Thank you, Hazel.
Thank you.
Okay, we've made several references to it already. Again, back in April 2020, the 12 food banks in the Bay all came together to form the Torbay Food Lines. Now, there are lots of reasons for that. 1, because it was more efficient. 2, because you couldn't get hold of food. You could still get the odd toilet roll, but you couldn't get hold of food in bulk. And so they needed to come together to get the buying power and buy from places like as far away as Bristol, and they were bringing it down by the lorry load. Sadly, they still are, but there's a great bunch of people that I've been to a couple of times now at the Riviera Life Church in Torquay, and well, you can see the enthusiasm for yourself here.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm Maria. And I'm Paula. First, I came to this church. Then I discovered there was a great need for volunteers. So when I was approached, I immediately, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's my thing.
I realised that they were a bit short of volunteers for the food bank after the COVID, and once things opened up and started to get busier. So just before Christmas, I said, oh, I can come along, give you a hand. And then I kind of invited my friend to join me.
Right, I've recently retired, and I mean there is a lot of times when I wish that I could do something for the community. So I just joined the food bank. This is my 3rd week, so I'm quite new to it. I go to this church, and I just wanted to do something that would benefit people out there that needed it.
I love it because I just really feel, as Paul, I'm retired as well, and I just think it's a useful use of my time. I enjoy being with people, and the whole thing of helping people that I could be in that same position, and I have been in my life where I've needed help, and I'm just grateful that I'm all right in a good position now, so I can just help others really, just with a few hours of my life each week.
I think it also benefits us as well because it's social, and we have obviously a nice chat, and you know,
tea and coffee.
Yeah,
Cake.
Teas, coffees. I mean, there's cakes available if we want them. So it's just great because it's just a social event for a couple of hours, and yeah, you just feel at the end of it that you've done something good.
I think also, and I think we probably all agree on this, it's an extension of my faith. That, you know, I believe that as a Christian, it's my duty to do what I can to help people in need. So that's a massive part of it for me. It's not working with my beliefs. But again, as Paul and Rosanna have said, it's the great camaraderie, the fun. We're quite good friends anyway, so there's a lot of banter and hijinks, but we have a great time.
We would recommend it.
We would, yeah. If you've got time, it's just worth it. You feel really good after as well, and you've had a good workout as well, carrying the bags.
But I mean, whatever you feel that you can volunteer to do, you know, there's so much need out there. Yeah, great, highly recommended.
Hi, I'm Jackie Williams, and I am the project manager here at Riviera Life Church for Riviera Life Storehouse. In addition to that, we do have other projects called Riviera Life Baby Bank and Home Store, which provides home equipment and essentials for people in need.
And I'm Jordan Williams, and I'm the senior leader here at Riviera Life Church, overseeing the church, and then supporting Jackie in overseeing the social action charities and projects that we run, which she's already mentioned. We started our food bank 4 years ago, and at that point it was just a food bank, so back at the beginning of 2018. We ran that for 2 years, and it was a lot quieter than it has been in the last couple of years. So I think in our first year we did about 350 parcels, in our second year we did about 650, and then at the beginning of 2020, before we knew what 2020 was going to look like, we started our Baby Bank project, which was kind of your dream, I suppose, in your vision.
Yeah, I worked as a health visitor in the Bay for 30 odd years, and a baby grant was something that was a big gap in the market. So as soon as I retired, I set it up. We had a fantastic response from the general public in donating, and we still do, donating clothes, nappies, equipment, whatever babies need, up to the age of 3 years.
Yeah, and then so throughout 2020, then obviously the pandemic kicked in. So I think we did just over 1,500 food parcels and over 200 baby bank parcels in that year. And then throughout 2021, we did a similar amount again, over 200 baby bank parcels, 1,500 food parcels. And we have a real great group of volunteers that are currently running around the place sorting stuff out. We have a cafe space open, which we're sat in right now. And we have sort of 3 or 4 volunteers who will man this area, make teas and coffees for people. We've got a couple of volunteers who are kind of sorting out all of our administration, and we'll kind of give them the referral forms, which they'll put all in our database. We then have another 3 or 4 volunteers who will be sorting through stuff, whether it's tins of food or clothes or donations. We have another 3 or 4 volunteers that are upstairs on our balcony that put all the non-perishable goods together in the parcels, and then we have another sort of 3 or 4 volunteers downstairs who will be putting all the perishable items together to all work together. So it is a bit of an operation where different people are in different spaces working really hard, but we would not be able to support the thousands of people that we do every year without them, without the incredible generosity of our volunteers just giving their time week in, week out. That's in the week. There's every week we have another couple of volunteers who go and do all our shopping for us and pickups from different supermarkets. So there's probably all in all, up to 20, maybe even a few more volunteers that make our food bank happen every single week. And we would not be able to do what we do and to help the vast amount of people that we help without their support and their help. And they are amazing. They are absolutely amazing. So.
And during COVID, it obviously was a bit of a challenge, the volunteer base, because a lot of them originally were elderly, so they had to shield. So we had to cull it right back, and it was just maybe us younger ones. Can I include myself in that? And it was hard work, but it's really good to have our volunteers back. And it's also helped them get back into society, into community, from having been through COVID, and that's really anxiety provoking to get back out there in the real world. But they're a great team, they're really supportive of each other, and like John said, don't know what we'd do without them, they're amazing.
Yeah, hidden benefits of volunteering starting to come out there. Now, the food alliance is one thing, but giving out food is not really the solution. It's tackling the bigger problems around why people need that food. And we can all stand here now and sort of say, well, are we paying for the heating or are we putting food on the table? But this hit people really hard, particularly in the first year. And they kind of dug themselves into really quite deep holes, not of their own making. And we therefore called on FAIR, the Financial Advice, Information and Resilience Service, to try and help people dig a little deeper and work out ways of coping and hopefully avoiding the food banks in the future. Karen Parker is one that is one of the volunteers for FAIR, and she's also well known to most of us in this room, I would have thought. She's been around volunteering and working in our sector for quite a long time, latterly at the Crafty Fox, which is why we positioned that picture right behind her head. This is Karen Parker's story.
My name's Karen Parker, and I'm a volunteer at the Crafty Fox Cafe and Hub in Foxhole. I worked as a volunteer here, well, I've been here now for 4 years. Part of it was employed, part of it now is just as a volunteer to help out and to be here to use my skills that I've gained over those years. I am an advisor with FAIR. I help people when they come in. I can make appointments for them, or I can, as they come in, drop in if they've got any questions to ask about benefits or financial advice. I can help them with that. I can always make further appointments for them if things, they've got forms to fill out that take a little bit more time. But I think it's been a big help to people knowing there's somewhere to come that they can get some sort of advice. I've managed to keep this going. Me and a few others that have been doing the work with FAIR have managed to keep it constant all the way through COVID, and advertise now to carry on and help people. There's a lot of people in this area in crisis that need some help. With filling forms out, benefits advice. It could be photocopying something for them if they've got to fill out something, identification, helping them with that. If they can't write very well, just helping them through, and also access to computers, because a lot of the time it's emails on computers or answering questions that have been sent to them. But really it's a case of filling out forms, giving advice, and signposting in the right direction if we can't help them. We had a lady come in that was having problems with her council tax. Council tax and rent are priority debts, or certainly a priority that people have to pay them. And she'd had letters through, she hadn't prioritised it, and we managed to put a letter together which helped her to sort out a plan, a payment plan. But it's all about giving advice really, and just helping people through the bad times. I think it's about wanting to help people and knowing the time that I've been here, the knowledge that I've got to actually help people and make a difference. I don't do so many hours now, but it is nice to know that people can call on me if they do need that extra help. And it's the other volunteers, I've got to know the other volunteers in the cafe, and the regular people that come in and the people that are new. It's nice to encourage people to come back, and often they'll make suggestions about what help that maybe they could offer and whether they want to volunteer. So there are a lot of people out there that want to give their time but maybe don't know the way of doing it. I think just the satisfaction of helping people and just giving my time. I'm retired now, and I think it's just nice it gives me something to look forward to, and something for me to get up in the morning for, is to come down, and I run a class here once a week, and then I do the fair, which is good to be able to make appointments for people and come down and help them.
I hope you clocked a couple of those figures there. Reclaimed on behalf of clients £948,000, and one person has £80,000 worth of income reinstated. That is just life-changing stuff at every level. Okay, we now move on to boys and their toys, which I think I'm still allowed to say, particularly seeing as our transport division is run by a woman, so that's okay then. But the drivers tend to be chaps. And Tim Courtney, who we're about to meet, loves his job, absolutely loves driving his big buses. But do listen out at the end, he wants a new bus. So if anybody's got a few quid to spare, please, that's all he asks. It's not a big ask.
Hi, my name's Tim Courtney and I volunteer with TCDT as a bus driver for the R bus service on both services, the 61, which is the Livermead service, and the 65, which is the Heel service. I've worked as a volunteer with TCDT for approximately 3 years. I started basically when I retired. I retired from employment rather than life. I retired down here about 3 years ago, and at the time wanted to do something for the local community. I've had a background in volunteering before, so I'm quite familiar with the satisfaction that can be gained from actually being a volunteer. And I chose TCDT specifically because of the fact it was a local rather than a national charity, and one that had a stated intention of making Torbay a place that was available to all, if you like, included all. And also that it wanted to make Torbay just a generally better place to be. I feel quite frustrated in some ways that Torbay is underrated by generally speaking, despite the fact it is such a beautiful place to live. So I like the fact that that TCDT was trying to connect people basically within the wider Torbay area and bring us all together as one, if you like. That's the hook for me. I used to be a director of a shipping company, basically, so completely different, although yes, large vehicles involved in that, but I never actually was on a ship. I was basically based in San Francisco as well as in London, and I wanted to do something completely different. I'd had a career basically that took me from a man and boy all the way through to director of this company, which was great. I travelled the world on it and all the rest of it, but I wanted to do something that I hadn't done before. And I've always liked the thought of driving a big vehicle. So when I saw that this opportunity was there as a bus driver, I thought I'd be interested in doing that. And that's why I chose being a bus driver. And because they don't require any specific qualifications, it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done in the past, all of that doesn't matter. As long as you can drive the vehicle at the right speed, stop in the right places, and don't do anything drastic. It's great. I work 1 day a week, which is 2 half days actually. I do the Monday afternoons and Tuesday afternoons.
Now tell me about it, because when we were talking earlier, all the time you were talking about driving this bus, there was a massive smile on your face. Tell me why.
Yeah. Of all the voluntary roles I've had, I like to do practical things, practical hands-on roles. So being the bus driver is very much that. It's very much hands-on, without a doubt, and you'd hope it would, because otherwise something could go drastically wrong. But it's more than that. It's not just being a bus driver. To me, it's an involvement in enriching the lives of others who are less fortunate than myself, frankly. I'm very aware that the people who use the bus, the passengers, are very, very grateful that the service exists. Most of them, without that bus service, most of them would be very, very isolated. And I think that's well, tragic, actually, for want of a better word. So the bus services, they provide a means of combating loneliness and isolation by connecting these communities that are otherwise stuck literally up on the hills around Torquay. It helps them, the users, lead a more active and involved life as a consequence. And it's more than just a bus service, it's actually a mobile, regular social club. All of the people who actually use the service know each other, and they know all of us, the drivers. We'll greet them by name, or I certainly greet them by name. And it's just a fun thing to do. You feel like for the space of a few hours, that's all it is each half day that I do, for only a few hours, I'm not giving up an awful lot other than my time. But it is so significant to these people, and that to me is a huge, that's the reward actually, that it's not costing me anything other than my time, and you're making, so it's such a simple thing to give, but it's so helpful to other people.
I think you've already answered the question. You definitely recommend volunteering to other people.
I most certainly would. To me, volunteering, without labelling the point too much, I think it's good for the soul. It makes it, if you can give something to somebody for nothing, I think that's a wonderful thing to do, and you should do it. It'll make the reward you get from helping somebody it's great. And it's a very cheesy expression, but you may have seen it on Hallmark cards and the rest of it. But in a world where you can be anything, be kind. And I think, to me, that's what volunteering is. You're not being asked to do much, but these little simple things can have such an impact on somebody else. And that in itself is a reward. So I think it's a great thing to do.
And as part of your duties, Tim, is there just one little thing you would wish for?
The one thing I would wish for is to have a reliable, modern bus. The buses are quirky in every sense, and to have something that would be, you knew wouldn't break down on you as it went, that doesn't rattle, doesn't creak, that would be a great thing. So yes, my wish list, please can we have a new bus sometime soon.
We'll ask everybody in the hall for you. Tim, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
As Tim remarked there, we now have 2 mostly mobile community centres, the 61 and 63 service running every day in Torquay. My final film is probably one of my favourite ones, and it's also the shortest, so bear with us. Again, during crisis, we helped set up lots of good neighbour schemes, which were a big thing back in probably the 50s or whatever. And again, these things disappeared, but through COVID, lots of neighbours were setting up WhatsApp groups and looking out for each other, and we just helped them sort of with the paperwork and what have you. And there are now 69 newish good neighbour schemes across the bay. One of them was set up by a powerhouse known as Ros Bates, who you've got to meet to believe. This film might only be 3 minutes long, but I spent the best part of a day and a half with her, I think, really. Full on, full time entertainer of the best sort. So Ros Bates. Mrs. Rosbert, and she's here with a few friends in St Mary Church in the precinct centre. And they've been meeting for how long?
We've been meeting here for how long, girls? A couple of months? Ever since lockdown's been lifted, and we found this little venue here. We meet here every Monday, 11 o'clock, and it's an extension of volunteering. And it's an excellent thing to do because you meet all these lovely people.
And is it every Monday morning here?
Every Monday, 11 o'clock.
Absolutely super. And what other volunteering have you been doing?
I've been doing shopping, and in the first instance, I volunteered to do the shopping for the people that couldn't go out, that were, you know, poorly and couldn't go out. I did shopping there. So that's how I got involved in it, and this is just a natural continuum.
I understand you also did a little newsletter for a while?
I did. Just for Paignton Road, I did 50 copies every month of everything that was going on, and I wrote it and delivered it, but of course I've got somebody else now who does it much, much better.
And how important was that to you and your neighbours to keep everybody informed during COVID?
It was very important, and I did get a lot of feedback from it, because they got my contact, they got the contact of Amanda and Jenny, so they weren't completely isolated. They got 3 phone numbers that they could use if they were frightened or nervous. They got help at the end of the phone.
That's great. And you've now got new friends?
Yeah, I've made a whole set of new friends. It's great.
And do you all enjoy coming here on a Monday morning?
What?
Some questions you should never ask. I hope you've enjoyed that. It has taken a little bit of time, but when you consider we had 1,700, it's been an absolute privilege working with these people and alongside these people. And I think we can all say that as a team. We all feel like one massive team rather than staff and volunteers. It's everyone together. And it's been an absolute privilege. And as you can see, my job's a joy.
Thank you, David, and I'll ask you later who your tailor is. Quite fancy. Having never done this before, I'm looking towards the wonderful staff of Tracy and others on how we next are going to run this. But we have the AGM part, and according to the agenda I have here, we will be taking questions throughout. So I'm guided whether there are any questions on Zoom that we may have, or if anybody has any questions, please stick your hand up and we'll try and get those questions answered. The first thing on the agenda from the perspective of the AGM is approval of the minutes of the 2021 AGM. So hopefully you received a copy, and I'm looking to anyone in the auditorium around to make sure that we've got approval and acceptance of those if you were there. If you weren't there last year, then it'll be a bit difficult to approve them, but if there are any issues, then let us know. Lovely. Okay, good. We can put that down. The second thing is, and this is where I probably got a bit of an apology. I got very enthusiastic, Tracy, and ran straight into my chair's report. So the majority of what I said earlier is part of that report. And obviously you've seen some of the great work. I think the 2 things I'd like to add in the short term that I've been here, the coffee conversation with Simon to become chair, to an organisation that sounded like it was immensely stable, was doing an amazing amount of work, and basically it was going to be a breeze, and I can sit here and bask in the glory of the amazing work that everyone was doing. Lasted for all of 5 minutes when Simon then said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be stepping aside. There will be a bit of a reorganisation. And then we sadly lost, as you'll see as we go through, 2 key members of our trustees. So I've had a slight mild panic about this nice, lovely chair's job. But I have to say, from everything I've heard and the experiences that I've had, this is such a wonderful group, such an amazing group of trustees. We can see some of the efficiencies and ways of working that are starting to change to make sure that the staff are fully supported to maximise what they need to do with the community. The trustees that I have around me are exceptional and extremely professional. And as you can see with the last hour of just those stories, it's immense. And again, I have to keep reminding myself, this was done in a time of a pandemic that we had never experienced before. It's not like we knew what was happening. So to achieve all this in that time, I can only imagine what's going to be achieved over the next 12 months, which I'm very privileged to be part of. The only thing I'd like to say going forward is that there's been a transition period, and for the staff, they've been so open and so encouraging and so supportive of the changes. And we want to make sure that from our perspective of trustees, we're supporting them as much as possible as we move forward in supporting Tracy in the great work that she's going to be doing with the new team as we enter the next phase. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Simon, for taking the phone call. I think you were in a cafe, I was in Tesco's. We bonded over some very big words around strategy, and then you said, could I come for a coffee? You won't be missed because I don't feel you're really going, which is a good thing. But we are immensely thankful for all the work that you've done, and I know we'll continue to do. And I know it's Torbay together in Torbay's way, but we wish you all the best in terms of spreading the work of Torbay across the country and making sure that everybody knows the immense work that's going on here. So put us on the map, but also to be able to help everyone else in the country who's interested in the kind of changes that you and Tracy and the team have put in place. So thank you very much indeed. The next piece we have on the agenda is the Treasurer's Report and approval of the annual reports. And Sarah, are you popping up to do this? Because you're on here. Thank you. I think you'll need to, because ladies and gentlemen on Zoom will need to be able to hear you, I'm afraid. So just give Queenie the opportunity to come up on stage. Mrs. Dudley, don't hurt your leg. Ooh. Be careful.
Okay, so this is story time with Queenie. I'm just going to read you the financial review from the annual report. So this is actually 2020, 2021, not 1920 as it says up there. But I'm sure you worked that out for yourselves. So total income for the year has increased from 1.8 million last year. I'm not going to give you all the exact numbers because it's really tricky reading them out, and I'll definitely stumble over them. I'm just going to round up, okay? So to 2.3 million in the year to 2021. This was due to the introduction of the helpline and the extra funding that came with that. And we all know why that was, because of the global pandemic. The surplus for the year was 309,000, and the total funds for the charity as at the 31st of March 2021 were 976,000. That's against 678,000 the year before, of which 243 were attributed to restricted funds and 733 to restricted funds. I'm sorry, I've got the really dull bit, haven't I? Just bear with, there's one more paragraph. The charity implemented a new financial system for its accounting processes to allow for more transparent reporting and a more coherent way of keeping financial transactions on file. We continue to review our supplier contracts and ensure savings are made wherever possible. And the most effective ways of running projects are done. And we have further expanded the finance department to offer services to other charities and to raise income to fund the 4 core activities of the trust. And I'll leave you to read the reserves policy and the risk review on page 19 for yourselves. Okay, thank you. Has anyone got any questions? Please know is what I'm supposed to be saying in my head, but also appear to have said out loud. No, any questions?
Okay, I'm going to step away from there because you might not be able to see me. This really is the beginning and the end, isn't it? Not for the organisation, just the AGM. We've got to do some practical things because we are a charity and we have to elect trustees each year. And this is my job, partly because we've got to elect Jo, so it would be a bit weird to ask her to do that. But we have a board of trustees that are really, really committed. They keep us in line, they challenge at the right times, they support in other times. There's a number of them in the room. Angie's here in the room with us. John's in the room, I think, with us. I can't quite see for the spotlights, thank you. I think we've got a couple, Roger on Zoom, I think. We've got Jim on Zoom. We've got Queenie/Sarah Martin behind me and Jo. This year we lost 2 trustees, and not because we had a falling out, but just because actually they felt it was time they needed to step aside to create more space on our board of trustees for community members. So we wanted to recognise the fact that Councillor Darren Cowell, who is still here, yes, and Jackie Stockman, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, both stood down, and they have given us an enormous amount of support, and we thank you very much for that. And we might even buy you a drink at the bar, Darren, if you stick around after 7 o'clock. We've now got to elect 2 more trustees. The way our trustee system works is we have at least 2 people that resign each year and we elect 2 more people on. And the trustees can also elect and sort of co-op in between our 2 AGMs and an additional 2 trustees. But tonight we need to elect on Jo Collin, who was co-opted by the trustees since our last AGM. And she has to stand down and we formally elect her again. And we also want to elect Nigel Williams, who said to me he couldn't stay long, but he's still here. So Nigel, thank you, Nigel. Nigel approached us towards the end of last year, didn't you, Nigel? Saying, actually, it's time I came back and did some stuff in Torbay. I think, you know, your heart is the same as ours, your values are the same as ours, and we were absolutely thrilled that Nigel came forward. So I really now need you all to agree to those 2 nominations and elect them in before they leave the building. So all those in favour of Joanna, as I've learned, Colin and Nigel Williams joining the Board of Trustees of the Torbay Community Development Trust, please raise your hands as high as you possibly can. I think that is unanimous. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, the next, and if you thought your bit was boring, Queenie, I've now got the appointment of the auditors. So our auditors are Thomas Westcott. They've done us proud and we'd like to elect those for the next year as well. So all those in favour, please, can you raise your hands? Thank you. That's taken, thank you very much. Just 2 more things left. So there's update on the future, which probably should have been the longest item on our agenda, but it's not going to be, I promise. And then we want to show you a video that we've made about our community building work. But let me just quickly talk about the future, first of all. Colleagues of mine have commented over the last couple of hours that actually we didn't anticipate to be the size of organisation that we are. But actually, as we grew, the need in Torbay grew as well. And I think it's important that we recognise that there are lots of challenges working in Torbay. There's also a lot of strengths in our community and a lot of things that we have learned. So our initial funding came from the National Lottery alongside the startup grant from the council. And that initial funding actually finishes next Thursday. When is this man going to leave? Yes, Simon. We did. Okay. Technical support. Did I say Nigel Williams when we voted? Thank you very much. Right. We have duly elected Nigel. We did it at the same time as Jo. Okay. Right. So back to where I was. Lots of challenges, lots of things that have gone on for us. Our funding, our original funding stream actually closes next Thursday, I think, John, isn't that the end of the Visual Ageing Well programme? But we're really pleased because, as Simon mentioned earlier, we have found a way of sustaining all of our activities beyond that initial investment and retaining all of our staff, bar one, and I'll come to that in a minute. So the exciting thing for me in terms of moving forward to the future is that we're still here. We can still support all the voluntary sector groups across the Bay. We can still work with all the partners. We can still be part of those partnerships and networks that Simon showed you right at the beginning of the evening. And we can still respond to our community, which is the most important thing. The thing that Simon didn't tell you when he was talking a bit earlier that Joe's just mentioned, well, first of all, Simon won't disappear overnight. So he is working with us 2 days a week from the 1st of April, 1 day a week from 1st of September, because we're transitioning this organisation and we want to take care of it. The other thing that we're doing, as Joe's just mentioned, is that Simon is setting up a trading wing because we have had a tremendous number of people who work in similar sectors to ours, but outside of Torbay, that want to find out about the work that we've been doing. And this started with people coming to us to ask about how we did community building. We have the largest community building team in the country. We've had one of the longest standing community building teams in the country as well. And we've really seen the massive impact that that's brought about, even before the pandemic. So, you know, we really had lots of people coming out of isolation, lots of achievements. We've worked through that, and now we've got to pick that up again and run with it. So we get almost daily inquiries around how have we done that? Can you help us do that? And the helpline is the other area that we continually get asked about. So the trading wing that Simon is setting up in partnership with one of our partners in Plymouth, Plymouth Pop Plus, will deal with all of those queries, because as a charity that was set up to help people that live in Torbay, we can't distract our staff into helping people that live outside of Torbay. But that is our responsibility as well. We need to share what we've learned. So Simon's long-term role will be doing that sharing. You'll see him jetting around the country, telling people all about Torbay. Hopefully he'll get us a few more tourists that come down as well. We can invite them down to find out what's going on. So he won't disappear overnight, but he won't be in the same role. So from the 1st of April, unfortunately, all the real responsibility lies with me. So if it all goes wrong, my shoulders it'll be on. Thank you very much, Graham, pointing that out. But I'm absolutely thrilled to be in the position of taking that on. I love the team that we've got. I love the people that we work with in the community, and it's a real honour to be doing that. So I kind of want to say thank you to Simon as well for everything that he's brought to us as an organisation. We've got our own little staff party for Simon next Saturday, and that's when we're really going to tell him what we think. But for the record, we thank you very, very much, Simon. And now I kind of want to leave you with something that's quite special. So a lot of our work is grassroots up. That's what we've held on to as an organisation since we were set up. And a lot of what we do is listen to people and just have conversations on the street. And the people that do that for us are our community building team. And so we wanted to leave you with a small video that we've made for the National Lottery, actually, because they are seeking to invest further funding in the community building team, matching the funding that's been provided by Torbay Council. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to leave you with the video, and then I just want to let you know that the bar will be open as this video finishes, and I hope you stay with us for a little bit of chat afterwards. And thank you all very much for coming tonight. Thank you.
You got a problem, don't care what it is. If you need a hand, I can assure you this. I have got two strong arms, I can help.
What if we could build our community from our street up and sing and dance and laugh and cry and live and die together? What if we could bring together all ages, colours, shapes and sizes, rich and poor, with or without a front door, to celebrate ourselves, to be together always.
The National Lottery Community Fund has supported our community building work for the last 7 years through the Ageing Better programme. Our 18 community builders have brought people together in the 30 neighbourhoods across Torbay, connecting people and enabling them to support each other. The impact in our communities has been substantial. The most vulnerable residents in our communities are seeing some lasting change in their lives. We need to build and extend on this programme to include all age groups in every neighbourhood, in Paignton, in Brixham and in Torquay, through our project, Bringing People Together, the Torbay Way. So why are we best placed to deliver this?
I think it's because we're strength-based. We're willing to try new things, we learn what goes well and we share.
Our work starts really with the people in the community and it's led by them. We ask them what they want. We start by really listening to them, discovering their skills, their passions, to build trust and establish relationships.
This enables people to take the lead with the things that they care about.
And because we have a vast knowledge of the local activities and groups, we can support people and help them to make the things happen that they really want to make happen.
We connect people to people and people to places and places to people.
We want to improve places and spaces that really matter to our communities.
Community builders were, I think, instrumental in actually helping us to get the shed up and running.
It was covered in weeds, people were dumping rubbish on it. Our community builder got us together to decide what we wanted to do to improve it. We drew up plans and everybody had a say.
After 4 years of very hard work, it looks great. We're very, very proud of it.
We'd like to take and share everything we've learnt over the last 7 years and build on it and grow an even stronger community where everyone feels included and valued.
It was a lifeline to me.
And what happened when COVID came along?
Isolation.
Loss of mobility. Poor mental health.
Financial hardship.
Poverty. Reliance on food banks.
And our work became even more important because of the isolation experienced by both young and old.
Yes, but because we're embedded in our community, we've listened to what people are saying and we are hearing what they need.
We responded by setting up the Torbay Community Helpline. Community builders were able to match people needing help with those offering help in their local community, whether it was shopping, prescriptions, transport, telephone befriending, and they were able to help them in and out of lockdown.
Our community has told us that what we are doing is critical and it's transformed and even saved lives. The demand for our work has tripled.
And we learnt how to change and adjust really quickly so that we're ready for new challenges. We found skills and wisdom and knowledge and willingness in our communities and we harnessed that to survive the pandemic. We worked alongside our statutory colleagues helping those that they couldn't help, but none of that would have happened if we hadn't had community builders connecting people.
The point I'd make about the community builders, they don't organise things, they set them up and they get the community to run them. The community then start looking after themselves.
And we want to make sure that other people have that opportunity for all ages.
We would like to continue and expand our work. We will continue to mitigate against COVID-19 by growing and nurturing a culture of coming together, looking after each other from an early age, and helping more people to reach their potential by supporting them at the earliest possible stage, to have a purpose in their life and to be happy.
Save my sanity.
Lots of people get lonely. Ain't nothing new.
What if there was always someone there? Next door, across the road, up the street, on our side, there for us, to be strong, to learn with, to dream with, to have fun with, to be friends with, there for us. And what if we were there for them, here, on our street, in our neighbourhood and across the bay? What if we were there for each other, together, always?
All the while, in this world where we live, there should be more happiness, so much joy you can give to each brand new bright tomorrow. Make me happy through the years, never bring me any tears. Make your heart be as warm as the sun from up above. Bring me joy, bring me sun.
Very much. Just one last announcement from our lovely hosts. Some of us have obviously been thinking about what we can do about Ukraine and the people that are in need over there. And I know the council at the moment is working towards a programme where local residents can host Ukrainian refugees, and that's one of our new challenges. As an organisation, we'll be supporting the council in doing that. But the lovely Palace Theatre has got 2 fundraising events going on. It's got, wait for it, game show and charity auction night on April the 24th from 7:30 to 9:30, and there's free tickets to come to that at the bar. And pig racing on May the 8th. I love to finish an AGM on a bit of pig racing. 7:30 to 9:30, and again, tickets are normally £2 or £5, but if you get them from the bar tonight, they are absolutely free. So that is now a 3rd reason to go to the bar. Thank you very much.